The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report. And Dom, you are still up in stupid Brisbane.
I am in one of the greatest places in the world, according to Time magazine, Charles. In March of last year, Time magazine made a list of the greatest places in the world to be, and the only Australian city to make the list was Brisbane. Brisbane, the city of dreams, the earthly paradise that we are now at, which is so lovely. The tropical climate, the freeways everywhere, the sense of dread as you walk along the street late at night. It's an exciting place to be, Charles. You should be here as well.
Yes. It's the Florida of the Southern Hemisphere, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, what a shock it was, Charles, for Brisbane to get that accolade from Time magazine. I didn't know Time magazine still existed.
Well, I presume if you look in the fine print, it will be sponsored by the Brisbane Tourism Association or something. Like, I don't think Brisbane's ever got an accolade that they didn't pay money for. No, look, I'm not insulting the people of Brisbane. Some of my worst enemies
because they'll glass you.
Yeah, they'll glass me.
But I mean, to be fair, Charles, number one on the list, number one reason why it's so cool, according to Time magazine, is because it has the Olympics. Which is not a strong argument.
They've got to start sort of G'ing up everyone to get interested in Brisbane.
Yeah.
So, you got Paris, London, Beijing, Brisbane.
And you know why this was. I don't think anyone else wanted it. Isn't that right?
I think it was.
Isn't it the case that no city wants the Olympics anymore? So Brisbane finally, fashions do come here a little bit late. I feel like the Olympics really peaked in the 80s. So about 50 years later seems like a kind of standard Brisbane time.
Brisbane's the kid who in school sport never got selected and always got chosen last. And Brisbane's now been chosen to play sport.
Finally chosen. But there is the city's got a spring in its step, Charles. I'm staying right next to the Brisbane Museum here.
Yeah. Oh, there's a museum.
There is a museum.
Yeah, right.
I haven't been in yet, but it seems to be quite a large building. What could possibly be in it?
They've got some nice bridges. Maybe they put some bridges, like some old models of bridges, maybe?
I think the bulldozers that Joe Bjelke-Petersen used to destroy many of the heritage things late at night. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, there's a lot there's a lot of history. Yes,
there's a lot of history. Charles, let's talk more about this earthly paradise and indeed catch up on the week in Parliament as well, because it's been a big week in Parliament. We'll do it all after this. So, Charles, have you heard about the Brisbane Metro? This is very exciting. It's very exciting. The Metro's happening.
Oh, right.
Sydney's building a metro. Yes. Melbourne's building a metro.
Yes.
Brisbane's metro is seriously underway.
I'm so glad that they're finally committed to rail, because that's always been my complaint about Brisbane is, that, lovely city, but just no rail. And
Charles. Did you think that the metro was a rail network?
Well, it's not a monorail. What is it?
No, Charles, rail is so passé.
What is it? Is it hover?
The Brisbane Metro.
The Brisbane Metro?
Yes. Obviously, it's buses.
What?
It's buses.
But they already have buses. What do you mean?
And I went down there. I know. They're rebranding them as the Metro. They're adding more buses. And I went down yesterday to catch the buses on the busway. Yeah. And they photographed the buses. Yeah. And the front of these new buses looks quite like a train. Like it's got that sort of angled design. They look very sleek. And then you have to look very closely to see that it's just got bus wheels.
Oh, my God. They've done it. Yeah, because remember, I don't know whether you remember, back in Sydney about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the Libs tried to stop doing the trams in Parramatta, and their solution was going to be to do buses that had the wheels hidden. Remember that? Remember they did a whole thing and everyone just mocked them and they went away. Brisbane, obviously, whoever was trying to sell that package then just moved to Brisbane, and suddenly them going, oh, that sounds like a great idea.
That's right. But what they've done, Charles, the genius of Brisbane is that, when you think of a bus, what's the key advantage, right?
Well, you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere.
Sydney Sydney had trams once upon a time, like Melbourne, and we got rid of them all for buses because you can share the road between buses and other forms of transport. It's a very easy way of building a transport network.
Yes.
Not in Brisbane.
Why not?
No way.
What
they do in Brisbane, because they love building freeways in Brisbane, and they love demolishing things. It's this pastime up here.
Yes.
So they've got the busway, and the busway is a massive underground bus lane. It seems like most of the CBD actually is just underground underground bus lanes. And so the buses zoom along the bus lanes and there's no cars allowed. And why has no other city thought of this? That rather than having a rail line that actually has some sort of, electric-based system and no emissions and so on, have a whole fleet of buses on underground roads.
In fairness, probably the buses are electric, wouldn't they be? They'd be electric.
Oh, maybe someday. I think the new metro ones are going to be electric. Maybe that's the height of modernity here. It's not a train, but it is an electric bus.
But isn't the whole advantage of rail that because it's on tracks, it's safer, but also there's a whole lot less maintenance involved, isn't there? You have to replace wheels on tyres all the time if you're driving buses, but you don't on trains and stuff.
You do, and that's those metro systems. I think the Paris Metro has a few lines where they actually run on rubber wheels, and that's the problem with them. But Charles, the genius of Brisbane's system, and this is what I've realised, is that the buses come every few minutes. Now, if they'd built a train line, the trains would have taken far more people, hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yes.
But instead of doing that boring way of doing things, it's much better to have a bus
buses
every 3 minutes.
Yes, a constant,
because that employs far more people.
Yes, well, that is true. That's very good. I've got an idea for how they could improve their metro even further.
How's that?
Which is that they take the wheels of their buses and replace them with sort of metal and then put down tracks because they know where they're going to go. They've got the road.
Yes, it's just a busway.
And then put some tracks on the busway. You see what I mean? And then you'd have these sort of track-based buses for their metro.
Well, that's a very clever idea.
Yeah.
And the thing was, you wouldn't need to build heavy rail, Charles. You wouldn't need to do that. It could be some sort of lighter version of rail, couldn't it?
Yes, that's
couldn't
right.
it?
Yes. Nah.
Not in Brisbane, mate.
Never happened.
Not a chance.
Look, actually, I've got a theory about Brisbane that I'd like you to I'd like to run by you, seeing as you're there.
I can test it out. Yeah, I'm here for a while.
My theory is that Brisbane people are generally happier than anyone else in Australia. It's the happiest city in Australia by far.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah. And a lot of people say it's the weather. A lot of people say, it's, the clean living. A lot of people say it's the metro.
Yes, huge. The bus drivers particularly.
But I've got a theory that, and this is just based on the people I know, is that if you end up in Brisbane, it's probably because at some level you've given up on life, right?
Yeah,
and
sure.
And what it is that that's the art to life, is sort of lower your expectations, just move to Brisbane, and you actually end up much happier than people who actually want something out of their life or, want to have real meaning or make a difference or anything like that.
Well, it's too hot for angst up here.
Yes.
It's very hot. It's like Singapore at the moment up here. It's very tropical. There's beautiful parks everywhere. It's a very green city.
Yes.
I think Joe put a stop to that for a while there, but they've actually allowed nature to come back in a few places. It's actually lovely. I was at the Botanic Gardens the other night. It was stunning. I was over at South Bank, and the thing is also they build things to be outdoors. They don't put walls on the side of buildings because it's never that cold.
Yes.
You can always do your al fresco dining, so you're never indoors, Charles. And that's the thing. Being indoors is what makes you miserable. It's being stuck in your room, where you think everyone hates you, like it was the case for me throughout much of my teens and 20s and 30s, and I'm still not sure. But the walls, they've closed in on me.
Of course, it does mean that you don't have any walls to hide behind when you're applying all the fungal rash cream that you need to survive.
In Brisbane. Yeah, look, it is a different climate. But the other thing is, I'm not a local. Because if I was a local, and you can never be, you can't move here. If you move here, like you say, it's a form of self-exile, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Because to actually belong to this place, you have to be capable of doing this. Are you ready?
What?
Queenslander! That's what you have to do. That's what they do. It's the mating
Do they just
call.
walk along the street going, Queenslander! Like that?
Yeah. They do.
Wow.
they love that. Have you not noticed that? It's a local custom. It's charming.
Oh, I thought it was the local magpies or something.
No.
That's actually people.
It's people. Because when you're a Queenslander, that's all you care about. You don't.
Yes.
You're not so bothered about being Australian.
No.
And you certainly don't say you're from Brisbane, because every other Queenslander hates you if you're from Brisbane.
Yeah.
It's a big smoke.
And so, what are their local customs like? Do they talk about the state of origin? What are their achievements?
In January? Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course they do. I mean, I remember the first time I came to Queensland with Chaz, actually, when we were in school. Every conversation I had was about the Broncos.
Yes.
And this was in January, so it was nowhere near the rugby league season. It was the only thing being discussed. Yeah, well, I'm sure if I went out there and tried to talk to an ordinary Queenslander, I'd have to talk about Wally Lewis, I think that. Or maybe Alfie.
Yeah.
Alfie Langer.
Yeah. I think that's
Anyway, I'm
probably
trying to
right.
fit in. I'm not fitting in at all. I'll have to come back where I can loathe myself in peace in Sydney. Charles, let's catch up on the week in Parliament, though, because it was a big one.
Yes. Now,
Not the Queensland Parliament. Nothing happens here. But the federal Parliament, we'll get to it after this.
The Chaser Report. News a few days after it happens.
yeah, so it's been a funny one. Like, in terms of a point score, you'd have to say that, well, I hate to say this, but I just think maybe the Labor Party just completely won the week. Like, how did that happen? Like,
Wasn't that a series of Craigs?
what do you mean?
You can't use the phrase win the week. It's kind of awkward.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Isn't it?
Okay, like, there's no other way to describe. I don't understand how they just sort of ran rings around everything that happened this week. So we had the tax changes, which of course,
We did a whole episode on stage.
yeah, we did a whole
3, yes.
episode on, and yeah, it's just somehow the Liberal Party found themselves wedged between themselves and themselves. But no, the one that I just was fascinated by. So the other thing is the Libs have been opposing Tony Burke's bill, which is the close the loopholes legislation. Which is a whole lot of IR reforms to close the loopholes on buses, right? And the Libs have found themselves in this awkward position of opposing closing the loopholes, right? It's very awkward. Like you hear them on the radio and they go, "Oh, well, we don't want to close these loopholes," and you go, and then the interviewer will go, "But hang on, aren't these genuine loopholes?" And it's like, well, it's about flexibility and stuff like that. And you just think they're just sort of they're not getting with the grip. But the one that I really loved this week, and this isn't to do with politics, it's more just to do with the essential essence. I think it summarises where Australian capitalism has got to, right? Which is the government on Tuesday announced that it was going to have global emission standards for cars, right? Which carbon emission standards for cars, which is great. We're the last country in the OECD, except for Russia, to do it, right? Like every other car.
Are we sure it's not premature, Charles, if Russia's not on board?
That's right. It's been seen as an obvious change that's been needed to happen for years. Like any expert on any side of politics will tell you the reason why Australia has shittier cars than the rest of the world is because they have to prioritise all the other places with their new tech, better emission standards cars, because there's actually laws requiring them to send them there first, right? And
We wouldn't want to do that, Charles. We wouldn't want to be pushy.
We'll just take the shittiest, dirtiest cars you've got. That was the last decade has been that, right? And so great law. It just means that our cars will be higher tech, right? Like that is literally the only consequence of this thing. But then all these little tiny business associations tried to start sort of talking about this. So you had the Motorists Association going, well, we don't know, like, will they take away your ute and stuff like that, trying to roll out these things and say, it's got nothing to do with that. Like, America has these standards. Like, they have terrible utes. They have horrible, like, it doesn't
They've
change.
got the Cybertruck, which we can't even get.
Yeah, like,
if you want a terrible ute, we can't get the world's most terrible
this
ute.
does not trample on your freedom to do anything except have better cars. Like, the only thing that these standards are not allowing us to do is have all the best cars. Anyway, that didn't really work. But the best one was the Australian Convenience Stores Association came out and they said, look, the Australian Convenience Stores Association.
There's an association for convenience stores?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes, honestly.
Like, you're telling me 7-Eleven and Easy Mart get together?
Yes.
But is there any other sort? There's only 2 brands. City Convenience Store. There you go, 3 brands.
City, Easy Mart, 7-Eleven.
Easy Mart's very big in Brisbane. There are not many 7-Elevens up. They haven't quite made it up here.
Night Owl. Hey?
Night Owl.
There's other ones, like, what's that one?
There's not many.
That's based...
But I like
Yeah.
I hope they have their meetings like at really inconvenient times in very brightly lit rooms.
What's good about it is actually... If you buy 2 memberships to that association, you get it for half price. You get 2 for the price of 1 on a lot of those memberships. No, but they came out and they said, look, this bill is a disaster. We need $500,000 per convenience store so we can install e-chargers in all our convenience stores, right, for so that vehicles will be able to charge it. Right. And they're going, like, without that, we have no incentive to install these chargers that bring people to our stores, right?
Where you have to sit. I mean, I know no one's used electric cars, but the whole thing about them is they don't charge in 30 seconds, like 2 minutes like a petrol car. No. You got to sit there for half an hour buying shit from the convenience store.
Most convenience stores are attached to service stations, right? Like that's right. So that's what they're saying is every time there's a service station, we need the government to give us money to install our product. Like, what sort of gall does somebody have? It's like I don't know. Like it's like I don't know. Coles actually does do this. They do go to the government and say we want the government to pay for all our goods or something like that. But it's like I'll tell you what it's like. It's like Foxtel going to the government and saying you have to pay for the sport that we're going to put on our private sports. Oh wait a minute, they do that.
Charles, they do that.
Yeah.
Already.
Okay. I'll give you a better example. It's like the mining industry saying that they need subsidies to dig the stuff that they sell out of the ground. Oh, no, wait a minute. They do that. No.
Charles,
there must be a really good example.
Just stop it. If you before long, you're going to get to the producer offset, which is the only thing that makes it viable to make television and movies in this country. Do you never want to make a TV show again?
Oh, yeah. No, that's true. My next show, the producer offset is huge. Yeah.
There's no government. No business can stand on its own.
Not in Australia.
Maybe drug dealing.
It's Australian. Maybe the Drug Dealers Association should come out and demand some more subsidies.
Oh, now there's a place you need a charger. When you've got that late night meeting with the dealer, the two cars next to each other passing the cash one to the other, that's a perfect time to charge the car. Just sitting there. You'll look innocent.
Now, Dom, I'd love to keep talking, but I've got to go. I've got people to meet and also governments to meet with. I've got a few demands that I've just come up with.
Well, I'm going to go out to the streets of Brisbane and try and get a subsidy. I mean, it shouldn't be hard. It's Queensland, should it?
Queenslander! Hey!
Queenslander! I've got a brown paper bag here, Charles. I think that's all you need in these parts to get something up.
Our gear is from Road. We're part of the Iconoclast Network. Catch you tomorrow.
See ya.